Inside the ring, he was known as the Canadian Crippler. By all accounts, he was a doting father outside the ring, which makes our number 12 tragedy all the more shocking. Chris Benoit's deadly meltdown.
Chris Benoit started at 18 years old as a young man in Canada, and under his own name became a huge success. He was this technical wrestler who used his skill to decimate his opponents.
At 5 feet 9 inches tall, Chris was shorter than most of his fellow performers, but the wrestler made up for his lack of size by displaying ferocious intensity.
He put his body through incredible hell on a nightly basis, suffering concussions, spinal injuries, all sorts of damage, just so he could garner attention. He compensated by taking large amounts of drugs, painkillers, steroids, so he could continue wrestling.
But for Chris, all the hard work and risky steroid use seemed to pay off. In 2004, the 220-pound fighter won the prestigious WWE Royal Rumble, cementing his status as one of the main men of pro wrestling.
This is a guy who proved, hey, if I just work hard enough, I can attain anything. And he became a huge superstar in the wrestling business. He had one of the most passionate, hardcore fan bases.
In 2007, 2 decades of life in the ring apparently caught up with Chris Benoit.
The negative effects of steroid use are many. First of all, a lot of people have physical problems that are related to those. And then what we see is a lot of emotional problems. We see people having panic attacks, getting irritable, and even acting out in rageful ways that normally they wouldn't behave.
According to published reports, the first clue that something was wrong came on June 23, 2007. Benoit called a contact at the WWE office to say he'd be late for that night's event in Beaumont, Texas.
That fellow wrestler felt like there was something odd about Chris's tone, his tone of voice and the way he described things, so he was concerned.
Chris Benoit sent out some text messages in the early morning hours indicating the door was open, this is my address, all sorts of things to basically signal to people, come over and check the house.
WWE officials grew concerned. They called police, who then checked Benoit's suburban Atlanta home. At 4 p.m. on June 25th, the Fayetteville County Sheriff discovered the bodies of Chris, his wife Nancy, and his 7-year-old son Daniel. The scene was as bizarre as it was chilling.
The deputies arrived on scene. Once searching the house, they were able to locate 3 bodies inside of the home here. Those bodies were Mr. Benoit himself, his wife Nancy, and their son Daniel.
Mr. Benoit was located in a weight room, and the minor child was located upstairs in a bedroom.
Benoit's friends and fans were stunned by the tragic turn of events. Even more stunning was the report from police just 24 hours later that Benoit himself was behind the heinous crimes.
We're now looking at this case and ruling it as a double homicide, suicide.
There was a lot of legitimate, sincere shock within the wrestling business that Benoit, of all people, would be a person who murdered his family, because this was a guy who was known as one of the ultimate family men in the wrestling business.
Clues to the mystery began to pour in. The medical examiner found that Benoit's body contained 10 times the normal amount of testosterone.
He called it the amount that you would see in a raging bull elephant. People who are under the influence of this kind of medication may not be in their right frame of mind.
Police found injectable steroids and prescription painkillers at the crime scene, leading many to suspect roid rage. But investigators also discovered a Bible beside each victim, suggesting the murders were more deliberate.
We will probably never know exactly what factor motivated him to commit this atrocity, but we do know there were many possible factors involved.
Are you somebody who's a violent person already? Are you somebody who has problems with relaxing and dealing with life stresses? Or are you somebody that just goes off? A lot of it is predetermined by what your personality is like prior to the roids and how you deal with rage prior to taking the roids.
When Chris's story became public, doctors from the Sports Legacy Institute requested samples of his brain to study. They found it to be heavily damaged from repeated concussions.
Given that his main vehicle of taking out his wrestling opponents was to, in essence, bash his head into them, he sustained a lot of traumatic brain injury.
He had too many concussions to even count. So whether or not this was also a factor in this tragedy is unknown, but highly likely.
According to brain experts, Chris suffered from chronic traumatic encephalopathy. The disorder is similar to boxer's dementia, which can cause memory loss, depression, and bizarre paranoid behavior.
If he was demented in the part of the brain that made him more violent and he's taking steroids, then you have several factors going on at the same time that can increase his out of control, rageful, violent behavior. It's not necessarily killing out of love or hate. I think it's somebody who was completely out of their mind and out of control.
Following the tragic murders, at least 10 wrestlers were suspended by the WWE in connection with a federal investigation into steroids.
The WWE actually has a drug testing policy, which they didn't have. They do some degree of random testing for steroids. They do testing for recreational drugs as well.
With the help of Chris's father, Michael, the Sports Legacy people hope this terrible tragedy will serve to shine a light on the dangers of concussions in sports. Up next, a legacy of laughter and tears. How were 4 Hollywood tragedies linked to one of the most successful shows on television?